I'll start. I own a 99 7.3 turbo diesel retired ambulance that I converted to an RV. I will do a build on this soon. I leave it out in a secure storage yard 180 miles from my house in the middle of the desert. But on my way to Glamis, where I typically use it the most, I tow a 22 enclosed trailer with some toys in there and ride a lot in the sand. Anyways, it was Friday, and it was time to head to the desert for the weekend. I got off work, had my car already packed and ready to head out to the storage unit to pick up my ambulance/trailer and head to the desert. I had with me two huge 1000 cca batteries. The ones in the ambulance were 3 years old, and I could tell they were tired. So I was going to head out there, quickly swap these in, and then be on my jolly old way. Wrong. I get to the storage yard. It is 930p, but the guy there is super cool and lets me in to grab my trailer/ambulance and head out. I get in, try to start the ambulance, and it is really dead. I mean, I turn the key and nothing. Sort of tries to start, flickers the lights, and then just completely dies. Dead ambulance. So I figured, yo, F the batteries. I opened the battery box up, which is this cool little compartment on the side with a sliding drawer where two huge batteries live. I take off all the wires/connections, pull the batteries out, and mock up my new ones in place. They are slightly bigger, but not by much. Just a little bit bigger, so I need to take the drawer off so they fit flat on the ground and more snug. No problem, do all that, works great. I then go to connect the wires. Major problem. The wires used on the old batteries are like 0 gauge and super tight. They fit great on the old ones because the terminals were on top of the batteries. But the new batteries I got have terminals that are sort of recessed down like one to make flush with the top of the battery. Not going to work. No matter how I position the batteries or the cables, I can't get everything to fit. It is now 11 p.m., and I am 30 minutes from the closest place that may sell battery cables. That is open right now. That's right, Walmart. So I leave the ambulance/trailer in storage, hop in my car and drive to Walmart. I go to the battery section, find the cables, and buy literally every one there. Short, small, thick, different connectors, etc. I have about 8 of them, and I need 4 total to work. 2 neg, 2 positive. So I think I have enough. I also need food. So I go shopping real quick for the weekend. Steaks, Sammy's, breakfast stuff, bread, barbecue food, the good stuff. Toss in the car and head out of there. I get back to the storage yard with everything in hand. It is now 12:30 am. I start matching up the battery terminals to the batteries and the master connections. I see the routes I need to take, which ones go where. I take my time to ensure this isn't going to be an issue. It's bulletproof. I get done around 1 am, ready to start the beast. I hop in the driver's seat. Voltmeter says 12. 4V, am super happy. I turn the key, cranks for like half a second, quickly dies to 4 to 6V, and everything dies. I mean everything. I can't even turn on the headlights. Interior lights are off. Nothing works. Oh shit, did I just break something? I go back to the battery bank, check it like 10 times, ensure everything is hooked up right. It is. I sit there for like another 20 minutes checking fuses, relays, shredded wires, etc. It is now 1 am. I'm stuck in this end by myself with a dead ambulance. I'm like, well great, I'm just sleeping here tonight. Totally fine. The ambulance is my home, and the trailer is my garage. I got a mattress, sleeping bag, food, water, beer, clothes, heater, etc. I'm pretty set up and ready to do this. I then give it one last ditch effort and call my electrical friend, who is already in Glamis. He's like, dude, you almost here, we're waiting for you. Sorry man, I'm stuck in the storage yard, in the dirt, by myself, and I can't get this damn thing to run. I have checked everything, put new batteries in, nothing. The thing is dead. I don't know what else to do. He says just check things. It is usually a terminal. Maybe the batteries. The terminal point on the back there. Maybe the starter. The starter. Holy no, that's it. I just got her in a high torque starter on this thing like 6 months ago. It helps a ton turn over that huge 7.3 turbo diesel motor and fires up instantly when the batteries are healthy. So I crawl under there, wiggle the starter wire from the battery, loose, like super loose, finger tight. I quickly grab a 14mm socket, Torque on there with like 40 pounds. Hop to the driver's seat. Grinning ear to ear. I turn the key. Cranks for half second and fires up. Roaring. 7.3 liters of American diesel rumbling in the dead of night. I turn on every light I have. I mean, like every light. I have 36 switches on this thing, so you can imagine how bright it is where I am now. I quickly call my friend back. ID started. I am so excited. I toss my food, tools, gear all in the back of the ambulance. Open up a beer and smile. I did it. I finish cleaning up. Open the gate to the storage yard. Drive out of there. It is now 2 a.m. I have 5 HRs to get to the camp in Glamis. I blast music on full blast, smiling and having the best time ever. I roll into camp, again with every light on. My whole camp is up. I meet up with 5 friends at 3:30 a.m. I tell them all the story, and we laugh about what just happened. Doesn't matter anymore. I made it. Shots of whiskey, another beer, a quick bite to eat. It's now 5 a.m., and we got a busy-ass day on Saturday of ripping dirt bikes. We all pass out for 5 hours and ride all day. No problems rest of the weekend. Some of the best conditions we have ever seen. Good times. That is what van life is all about. Being self-sufficient, sticking to it, adventures and best friends. Cheers, boys. TLDR, I got stuck in the desert by myself with a dead battery. Turned a quick drive into an 11 HR adventure. Made it to the desert and rode dirt bikes all weekend. While backpacking the Appalachian Trail in northern PA, a friend and I just finished hiking up a very large hill and were ready for lunch. We had planned on eating at a shelter that was another 2 miles down and up another hill. After some discussion, we decided to eat at the shelter, as there would be water. Well, as we arrive at the shelter, we come across who we initially think is another hiker. But no, this guy was just carrying an old school backpack and was digging for crumbs out of the bottom of a Fritos bag. So he seemed out of place. We asked if he was backpacking or day hiking. Never making eye contact, he mutters out backpacking. We then asked if he was section hiking or through hiking, as in, doing the entire trail. He looks at us with this weird look and says, I'm just hiking through. After a little bit of talking and avoiding all of our questions, he just quickly said, I gotta go. As he packed his bag, we asked what his trail name was so we could look out for him on logbooks. He clearly had no idea what we were talking about, and this struck us odd as anyone because who hikes the knows what a trail name is and usually has one they go by. After sort of explaining what he meant, he said, oh right. It's Hatchet, which was obviously a load of crap because the guy was holding a pickaxe in his hand when he said this. Well, we continued hiking, and we reach our camping spot. We get settled for the night when I'm woken by Hatchet whistling for my backpack. Now my friend and I both use hammocks, and I had my backpack wrapped around the tree my hammock was hanging on, so he ended up shaking my entire hammock. I screamed hey, and he looked in my hammock, stared right at me for a good second, then bolted. By the time I got out of hammock, he was nowhere to be seen. Turned out he had stole a pack of tuna from my bag, and a couple granola bars from my buddies. Never saw him again. The weird part was we got back into town and ate lunch at a diner. Turns out old Hatchet was on the run. There was a wanted poster hanging up on the door. Turns out 2 weeks prior he had mugged a couple people, leaving one guy pretty bloody. The whole thing was pretty freaky. We gave our statement to the police but never heard if they caught him or not. Around 18 months ago, when my girlfriend and I first got together, we went camping regularly with a couple of friends in a large ancient forest. We would going, set the tent up in a light, have a barbecue and some beers, then sleep. Well, our friends would. We went several weeks running. Same routine, different friends each time, etc. Until one night we decided to leave the tent and return later so we could get some more supplies. We returned to the tent at dusk, but found a stick figure made from twigs at the entrance of the tent. We smoked a bit, had some booze. One of our friends, who reluctantly joined us on this occasion, turned strange. He disappeared into the woods, which we found strange as he was petrified on the way into the woods, and then we could hear nothing but singing for at least an hour. He eventually returned, and we continued to party until it started to rain heavily, at which point we decided to call it a night. We woke up in the morning and decided to pack the tent down. It eventually became obvious that the trees surrounding our tent had the same shape as the figure carved into the bark. We pretty much rushed to get out of there and came across a still burning pit of fire surrounded by felled trees. That was the final straw, so we ran the remaining mile back to my car. I have to add that the woods I'm talking about has a history of deaths and suicide, and has also had reports of witchcraft too. In fact, the surrounding 20 miles has quite a lot of stuff like that. I'll start the story with the fact that I don't believe much in life, legends, mysticism, other worlds. For me, these stories were just stories, nothing more. I have yet to see one of these with my own eyes. The story happened about a month ago. Of course, I didn't take a video. Who knew that this would happen? We came to the famous Tambucan Lake for healing mud. The weather was warm in the last days of the passing summer. We parked our motorhome in a wooded area overlooking the lake. We decided to stay overnight and early in the morning while there were no people to pick up some dirt. We had dinner with a view of the sunset. Romance in a word. During dinner, a small red dog came running to us, very kind. We already had dinner for the three of us. Everyone enjoyed the delicious food while admiring the sun, which had almost disappeared behind the horizon. At 8 to 9 p.m., the lake becomes deserted and plunges into the silence of the night, accompanied by the singing of crickets. We turned on the garland stretched along the perimeter of the tent, drank tea with aromatic herbs of thyme, black currant, and mint. At about 10 at night, we began to get ready for bed. Having cleared everything from the table, we went to bed, and the stray dog pretty much feasted on the treats and settled down in one of our chairs, guarding the table on the street. There is always a good sound sleep in the fresh air. After I think no more than an hour, I plunged into the arms of Morpheus. I had a dream. I was in the same place, only during the day I was lying behind the car about 3 meters on the ground. I see the sun breaking through the crown of the trees. I continue to lie on my back. I turn my gaze towards the motor home. I see the same happy red dog rushing towards me in joy. A little to the side, I notice another medium-sized black dog. I manage to tell my new red-haired girlfriend running towards me that you brought another friend to visit us. After a couple of seconds, the black dog looks like thick black smoke. I don't know how to describe it more precisely. A cloud of darkness about 2 meters in height and width, constantly changing shape, rushed sharply in my direction. I woke up in horror. Having opened my eyes, there was still the same picture in front of me, only I was already inside the motor home where I fell asleep. My whole body was frozen in horror. The entity pressed with enormous force in the area of the collarbone and did not give the opportunity to breathe. I clearly watched how the creature changes shape in the cabin. The battery charge indicator is brightly lit and acts as a nightlight. A strong feeling of fear, incessant pain, and absolute helplessness during these 15 to 20 seconds of horror. My thoughts were about one thing. Maybe I hadn't already locked the door and a stranger burst into our room, who was currently strangling me. I'm so sorry, I still don't understand what's happening. Just a couple more seconds and I jumped up, panting, sat on the bed. There was no one in the cabin except us. The doors were locked. I took a breath. I thought it was a terrible dream. Only in the area of the collarbone the pain did not go away for about 3 to 4 hours. Later, having studied everything that happened to me, everything led to one thing. I suffered a paralytic sleep. This was the most terrible dream in 39 years. I hope it won't happen again. I love to get out into nature, but I don't have any company for this, and I have to go alone. I'll tell you about one of these trips now. It was summer. I left the office happy, having received a 2-week vacation from my boss. Looking forward to a great trip, I loaded everything I needed into the car and hit the road. The road was long. I did not expect to travel such a long distance in one day. I didn't take a tent with me, because I could easily sleep in the car, folding out the front passenger seat. After 6 hours of driving on an almost straight road, I began to fall asleep. We had to find a place where we could park the car and spend the night in it. I didn't want to be on the side of the road, and it was impossible. I had to find some clearing, and around there was only forest and forest. I drove another 10 kilometers and suddenly noticed an exit from the road to the village. I was very surprised. because who would live or build a dachi in such a wilderness? There are 200 kilometers to the nearest city. However, this village made me very happy, but after a few minutes my joy subsided. The village turned out to be abandoned. No, it was not destroyed, but abandoned. It looked as if all its inhabitants had left it about 3 months ago, but this did not stop me. In general, there was nowhere else to spend the night, and I parked the car near this village in a small clearing, surrounded on almost all sides by dense impenetrable forest. Having enfolded the passenger seat and sat down on it, I went to bed. However, my sleep did not last long. At about 3 in the morning I heard a knock on the car window. A little chilled, I turned to the glass. The thoughts in my head were confused. Opening my eyes, I saw this. A strange creature was knocking on my window. His head looked like a stump that they started sawing, but not finishing it completely. They left it there. Its jaws opened almost 180 degrees. Its mouth filled with yellow and sharp teeth. The skin was pale, the eyes were yellow, and the pupil in them was narrow and red. Instead of a nose, there were 2 holes. It was then that I experienced a feeling that I will remember for the rest of my life. Feeling of hopelessness. I couldn't do anything. If I get out of the car, I will only become an easier prey. I'll remain lying in a stupor. It will break the flimsy car window and get me. Then I was controlled by panic. I don't even remember when I decided to get into the driver's seat and try to get away from the monster, but that's exactly what I did. The engine roared, and in a panic I rushed on my iron horse, far away from this damn village. However, the monster did not want to give up and ran after the car. I pressed the gas to the floor and drove as fast as I could, but the monster did not lag behind. It ran on all fours and slowly caught up with the car. It was already a meter from the car when I noticed a turn, which, fortunately, turned out to be an insurmountable obstacle for the monster. I pressed the gas until I reached the nearest town, and there I already booked a hotel room. I had nightmares about how that monster finally caught up with me and ate me. I woke up in a cold sweat when it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Somehow I got up and went on to my relatives, but on the way I was afraid of everything in the world. Fortunately, I was returning back by a different route, not through the forest. Already at home, I remembered the DVR that was in the car and recorded everything that happened. Honestly, I didn't want to see what happened that night, because even remembering it was terrible. However, curiosity overcame fear, and I pulled out the memory card from the recorder and inserted it into the computer. Having rewinded the video to the right moment, I saw the monster running out of the forest. I was surprised. How was it able to overcome the impenetrable thickets? But the worst thing awaited me ahead. At the moment when I was leaving the village in panic, the video recorder recorded a decomposed corpse, gnawed almost to the bones, in the window of a nearby house on a table in the center of the room. No, the villagers did not leave. Death overtook them right in their own homes. God, I almost went crazy at that moment, but somehow he was able to cope with the madness and began to live on, not thinking about the abandoned village that had become the abode of the monster. So about 4 years ago, I spent the summer in my van with my son, who was about 12, and our dog. We were scouring Craigslist looking for gigs to earn some money, and scored a good one. A lady outside of College Station needed some quilts made. Well, I have a degree in sewing, so we called and she hired me. I told her about our van adventure, and she said we could stay in her sewing trailer while I made the 5 quilts she wanted. So she lived on this farm and had all kinds of ducks and geese and turkeys and of course chickens running around. She had named them. Some she had for years. It was the cutest little farm. Well, one day my son was being a typical 12-year-old and accidentally let our dog out of a trailer. She was a lab German Shepherd mix, so she went right for the birds and ended up killing one of this woman's favorite chickens. I know it sounds simple, just a bird, but she had been so good to us, and here's my damn dog trotting back to the trailer with a dead chicken in her mouth. This woman is upset and crying, and my son is beside himself with guilt. Horrible, horrible moment. That woman was so gracious and kind. She pretended it was no big deal even though I know she was upset. She brought us food and paid me $500 for making those quilts. I'll never forget her. Just crossed state lines into Montana and decided to park for the night at a truck stop / casino. Just got out of the shower and was getting dressed when there was a knock at the door. We're set way in the back of the lot. So wondering who would walk all the way back here, I opened the door to two police officers. They asked me for it, and at the time my friend had both our wallets in the shower with her. I explained we were from Canada and that we had just arrived. I still had no idea why they were asking for any of this info. An hour prior, as soon as I said we were from Canada, they said, "Okay, we just had a complaint that some angry customer had called the store here and said that he was going to kill everyone inside with a shotgun. You have a good night, maybe lock your door tonight." I made sure the van was ready to roll at the drop of a pin, then went inside for snacks and went to bed.